2nd and 10. Horsky, play action. He's had a good pocket. It's intercepted at the 45. And maybe another chance for a pick six. It's Tasso Whipple. He's in.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Meyers.
And we welcome you back for another edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron, playoff edition number 2 here on the Westmoreland Sports Network, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Sean Meyers, Dan Flickinger, and Flick. We've got a lot to get to. We'll look at all of the postseason games in Westmoreland County from last week. Many of those first round, although there was a quarterfinals matchup mixed in. We will have plays of the week, and we have 4 big interviews with the 4 remaining Westmoreland County high school football coaches. Penn Trafford's John Ruane, Lance Getsy of Franklin Regional, JT, John Thompson, the head coach of Greensburg Central Catholic, and Thomas Paulone of Jeannette. Well, it was the start of the postseason, and 4 teams advancing from Westmoreland County, including a all Westmoreland showdown on the horizon in Class 1A. Overall, I would say pretty decent effort. There was maybe 1 or 2 teams that I thought had a chance to move on that didn't, but I think we got at least one big surprise in Jeannette moving on as well, and then Franklin Regional winning that 8-9 as a kind of a toss-up. You figured GCC and Penn Trafford, the 2 best seeds, would take care of business, and they did.
Yeah, I think everything kind of played out like we thought it was going to. You mentioned that maybe, Bell Vernon, I think, maybe the team you were kind of alluding to there, had an opportunity against McKeesport, just couldn't get much going offensively. That Tigers defense really shut Bell Vernon down. I didn't know that, Greensburg Central Catholic and Monessen was going to turn into that type of shootout. I thought there'd be a lot of points scored, don't get me wrong, but, what was it, 65 points in the first half? Pretty ridiculous. But unfortunately, and I know maybe we'll get into some of these things, but you look at some of these other games, Latrobe, again, just kind of still reeling, I think, even though they played better against Penn Trafford to finish off the season. But, losing Alex Tash was such a big injury. Southmoreland went in banged up into their game against Highland. So we were wondering if maybe that's how that game kind of would go. And then, you look at Greensburg-Salem, they kind of made it a game before Avonworth pulled away at the end. So I think they have some building blocks to go off of. So all in all, I think everything kind of went the way we thought it was going to, except maybe Jeannette, because that upset was major for the Jayhawks.
Yeah, we'll look at all of the brackets with the exception of 6A because nothing happened in 6A. There was no games. They start this week. But 1A was the bracket where there was some upsets to be had. Other than that, it was mostly chalk in the other classifications. But 1A, it was kind of a toss-up for some of those games, made for some very interesting results. Let's look at the Westmoreland County results from this past week. A game that I had the broadcast of, you can go back and listen to. Penn Trafford 49, South Fayette 28. The Lions got off to such a great start. They end up losing their final 5 games, but they played 5 great teams. Offensively, South Fayette was good. Penn Trafford was even better, though. It was really about the running game. And not only was it Tasso Whipple, because he's been a constant all season, Derek Carr was very effective, especially in terms of getting into the end zone. And then I think the biggest development, the most pleasant surprise, Ben Grabowski went for almost 100 yards. I know that he had played very briefly against Armstrong. I don't think he got any snaps, or certainly didn't register any stats against Greater Latrobe. But it seemed like that was for the best because he looked rejuvenated. He looked pretty darn close to 100%. Certainly, if he wasn't 100%, that's worrisome for any future opponents because he was a third threat in terms of running the football. They didn't basically have to pass it. They scored on almost every single possession, primarily on the ground.
It's pretty hard to believe, man. Thinking back to when he broke his foot, I remember the golf outing, the football golf outing that a couple of us played in. They were saying, I think, because it just happened, hey, Grabowski broke his foot, and apparently it was a bad bone to break, and he's going to be out for a while. But heck, I thought a while meant, maybe late September or something. And obviously, it didn't heal as quickly as maybe everyone hoped that it would. But I give credit to the Penn Trafford, coaching staff and, of course, the medical team there at PT, making sure that he was 100% healthy. And Sean, I wasn't at the game, but I know you were. Obviously, they threw him into the fire because they thought he was healthy enough. and he ran pretty darn hard. So it was good that they, waited to make sure he could do something like that, handle a bigger workload. And he was obviously able to do that. But I think now, Penn Trafford, man, they have a three-headed monster right now rushing the football. Obviously, Tasso Whipple, one of the best in the WPIAL. But as you mentioned, Derek Carr with 3 touchdowns on the ground, and then Grabowski. I think this is something that maybe John Ruane was salivating about all season long and was hoping, he could utilize that as soon as the season started. But with Grabowski out, it's something he's, I'm sure, been dreaming of all year. One of the other things, as I was looking up some stats preparing for our show, I do a little bit of prep, Sean. I don't know if you know that or not. But Tasso Whipple, and I'm sure you mentioned this on the broadcast, passed Devin Austin on the all-time rushing list at Penn Trafford. The top 12 rushers that were the top 12 rushers at Penn Trafford that were provided to us by our man Rush Petter. 8 of those 12 played under John Ruane. So it just goes to show how great of teams he's had and individual players that Coach Ruane has had. So I just want to pass that along as well. And you mentioned this too. South Fayette is a pretty darn good quarterback as well. Drew Welhorski, passed for over 200 yards, rushed for almost 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, and he's only a junior, so he'll be back next year. So South Fayette's in good hands when the Lions return in 2025.
Yeah, he made a few spectacular plays, but it was just really dominance for Penn Trafford by and large. And I will say one wrinkle, they've shown this to some extent with Whipple and Carr, but now with Grabowski as well. I believe in the first quarter alone, 4 different players took snaps at what would, kind of be considered the quarterback, although you call it a wildcat if it's a running back. But they were getting Grabowski, Carr, Whipple, and then, of course, their regular quarterback, Louver, all getting snaps. And sometimes there would be a quarterback, which actually might have been a running back, and then 2 sidecars, creating 3 different options in any given play to run it, plus the option to pass it. So it is.
And then Grabowski in the first quarter, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, didn't line up at quarterback and still threw a pass, right?
Yeah, they did that double pass, the backwards pass, and then it was one of the first plays of the game. And I think that was one. Let's try to catch South Fayette off guard, because if they look at the film, they're not going to see Grabowski hardly at all, maybe for a few snaps all season. So things kind of went according to plan for Penn Trafford. It's going to get a lot tougher, certainly. But that is their first win in the postseason since they won the state championship in 2021. So congrats to them. We'll hear from their head coach a little bit later on. We're also going to hear from Lance Getsy, because his Panthers, they had to earn this one. It was tough, but it came down to 17-16 in their favor at Martorelli Stadium. They knock off North Hills in that 8-9 matchup. And they did it by and large without the guy who has been their best offensive player all season, Kyle Dupill. It's unbelievable that they could lose Dupill, who's been basically pencil him in for 200 yards and probably multiple touchdowns every single week. And they still found a way to win on the road against a slightly better seeded team in the Indians. I don't know what his availability is going to be going forward at some of those, gamesmanship. Plus, the Panthers might not even know at this point. But if they get him back, look out, because they apparently can figure out ways to win even if he's not at 100%.
Yeah, that was really impressive. I didn't realize that until after the game was over. I hadn't had a chance to watch it or anything, and I was keeping tabs on the score. And then, I saw Dupill did barely even play, and I'm like, what? What happened? How, they were still able to win the game. That's huge. And obviously they're going to need him this week. Hopefully he can come back and play. They're going to need him this week against Pine Richland. But, and really you look at that game, Sean, playing without Kyle Dupill, you look at the end of the game, Franklin Regional's trailing 14-10, and then they go behind 16-10 because of a bad snap on a punt, and that led to a safety. And Jameer Austin maybe made the biggest play of the year, recovers a fumble just over 8 minutes to go. So at that point, North Hill's trying to run out the clock. Maybe they score a touchdown. Who knows? They're already up 16-10. They get a field goal. Game's maybe over at that point. But Austin's able to come up with a big fumble recovery. And then on the game-winning drive for Franklin Regional, they pick up a first down on a 4th down because of a North Hills penalty, on an offsides penalty. And then they score the game-winning touchdown on a 4th down play. I think it was just over 5 minutes left, as Lemke fakes a quarterback sneak and then hits Cole DeVola on a pop pass for the touchdown, just a quick pop over the middle. That was really
like a Tim Tebow, right? I mean,
yeah, like a jump
that's
pass.
the guy I think of.
I think they call it, I don't know, when I used to play, they would say like tight end pop pass, but yeah, it was like a jump pass, right? The same play that Penn Trafford got in the state championship, actually, a couple of years ago. So, to see how that last drive went was pretty crazy. And what a great play call by Lance Getsy. Fake the quarterback sneak. I mean, if that doesn't work, you either look like a genius or not in that situation, right? Because you're thinking, oh, a quarterback sneak for Lemke should be easy, but they went for it and they got a touchdown out of it, and that won in the game.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jay Austin. It does feel like he has made a lot of big plays, forcing turnovers. Remember, he was instrumental in that narrow win against Greater Latrobe. I think he forced 1 or 2 turnovers in that game. He's made big special teams plays. He's not getting the headlines that Lemke and DuPill are because he doesn't do a ton offensively at receiver, but it seems like no one makes bigger plays than him defensively. And by the way, we mentioned that they won primarily without DuPill. They've also been without their best defensive player for about half the season in Austin Kearns. So no one is 100% healthy at this point of the year, but it is so tough, even for schools in Class 5A, to overcome injuries to some of their best players. And the Panthers found a way to do that, not only in the regular season, but now into the playoffs. Well, a team that really was not able to overcome a major injury to one of their star players was Greater Latrobe. They did get into the postseason, a big accomplishment, but they fell 42-7 against Bethel Park. That's a really good Blackhawks team that, heading late into the season, they maybe were in contention for being the best team in Class 5A. So not surprised necessarily that Bethel Park won. I was hoping the Wildcats would keep it close, but kind of just got away from them. They just don't have enough offense right now. John Wetzel is a great player, but I don't think the passing attack has been as potent as we thought maybe it could be. And with him as really the primary running threat, that's kind of easy for really good teams to try to slow down. And that's exactly what the Blackhawks did. They really kind of just stifled Greater Latrobe from the start.
Yeah, and again, when you don't have Alex Tash, you have to be able to figure out ways to throw the football, and it didn't happen, obviously, against Bethel Park. And you give all the credit in the world to guys like Wetzel and Prohovic and some of the other, guys that I'm not mentioning that stepped up. Andy Tash, that stepped up in Alex Tash's place, making splash plays against Penn Trafford, trying to do so against Bethel Park. But again, you're just fighting such a big uphill battle. It's not just not having Alex. It's just you could just kind of see the, I don't know, mentally and that kind of thing. When you look to someone to make a big play and he's not there, it does make it difficult, despite playing tough against Penn Trafford. So just kind of tough. And I think, Ron Prady, I'm not sure if he said it, the interview with you, Sean, or maybe I've read it somewhere that, he admitted to the fact that we're just not the same team, without Alex Tash, just the way that it is. They didn't expect, beginning of the season, they didn't expect to get a low seed. They didn't expect to scratch and claw their way into the playoffs. They thought, hey, we have a chance of winning, competing for a WPIAL title. And then, the injuries took their toll.
Yeah, no doubt. I would say if you go back about 3 games into the season, the vibes were this team is going to make some serious noise, even while moving up from Class 4A to 5A. Ultimately, they did make the playoffs, so that's 3 consecutive years. That's an accomplishment, but not the way they wanted their season to end. Well, the same can be said for Bell Vernon area. The Leopards, they will not three-peat as WPIAL and state champions. They fell for the second time this year, 34-11 against McKeesport area. Very good Tigers team. They had the Leopards number this year. They've even had the Leopards number, I think, during one of those state championship runs for BVA. So kind of the same story as Greater Latrobe. They just didn't get enough offense to really compete against the Tigers. And come on, Spell, the future Nittany Lion, truly one of the best players in the entire country for his class of 2027. He got up to a slow start this season, but he has certainly found a new gear. He was almost unstoppable. He is a special player, and for Matt Humbert, all the scheming in the world, they just could not find a way to slow him down. So really can't get a lot going offensively, can't stop a talented player defensively. It leads to, a 23-point loss.
Yeah, and I thought that maybe the game would be, a little bit closer, but, obviously that didn't happen. And you just got to credit Bell Vernon, man. It's so hard to reload after what you lost and then moving into a higher classification, playing bigger teams, and with a bullseye on your back and a tough schedule, right? I mean, they didn't shy away from it; they never do. So you give Bell Vernon a lot of credit for that. And again, everyone's gunning for you, two-time state champions. Even if 25 isn't on your team anymore, they're still gunning for you, two-time state champs. And I give a lot of credit to Bell Vernon for getting into the postseason.
Yeah, and McKeesport, I mean, that's a tradition that very few schools can match. So they know what it takes to win in the postseason. Matt Miller, their coach, is very accomplished in his own right. So that's a team that certainly can make some noise. Would not be surprised if they make it back to a championship game in Class 4A. Well, we were hoping we would see history for Southmoreland. The Scotties got a home matchup, but they did not win their first ever postseason game. 56-20, they fell against Highlands. Some of the guys we weren't sure about, Anthony Smith, Elliot Primus, they played. There's no way that they were 100%, but then some other guys like Ethan Shawley were not able to suit up. And it just really seemed that even with some of those guys in question able to play, it just wasn't nearly the same team that we saw even 2 weeks ago.
No, and that's a shame. You'd love to see teams at full strength going into the postseason. It's kind of rare, actually, but when you have that many players banged up, it's so difficult, especially going up against a good Highlands team as well in a 9-8 matchup. So I think Southmoreland, though, you have the young quarterback in Anthony Smith. I mean, they're going to be losing guys like Primus. I believe Shawley's a senior, right? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously they're going to be losing some guys, but they do have some young, talented ones as well that we've had a chance to watch, this year. So I think the future is bright for Southmoreland, but going into the playoffs with no momentum and the injuries, it was a shame because you're just rooting for the Scotties to finally get that playoff win. And I know Tim Bukowski, we enjoy talking with him every time we have an opportunity. Easy guy to root for, but didn't happen this year, hopefully next year.
Yeah, and to be completely honest, I think a lot of people looked at that team, how it's constructed this year, and said they'll be a very good team this year. They might be a great team next year. Now, it just doesn't happen. You have to go out there and you have to improve. Just because the guys are coming back doesn't mean you're automatically going to be better. But I think that they do have a chance to make some noise, and maybe next year will be the year. We thought this could be the year that they get the postseason win. But if nothing else, the fact that they are now a regular in the playoff shows how far this program has come after going, 40 years without making the postseason. Now they've been in just about every year for the past half decade. So their season ends maybe a little earlier than expected. Minaj Lucas, by the way, he's a terrific player for Highlands. No one pretty much all season has been able to slow him down. Freeport area 44, Mount Pleasant area 20. Well, it's a recurring theme that we've talked about, Flick. Their quarterback, Cole Chatfield, did play, wasn't 100%. We didn't even know that he would be able to play. So you have to wonder, maybe slightly compromise how much of an impact that had. But Freeport's got a very good quarterback running back duo. And unfortunately for the Vikings, that proved to be just a little bit too much for them.
Yeah, Freeport, offensively was just a bit too much. Got to give a shout out to our man, though, Jarrett Garn, who had another good game for Mount Pleasant. Man, did he put together a really good senior season. And I hope some coach has taken a keen eye to him and seen what he's done this season. Whether he's going to be a kicker or position player, or maybe he's going to play soccer somewhere. I don't know in college. So congratulations to him to putting together a great season. And you got to give it up to Cole Chatfield too, who finishes off his career, solid career for him at Mount Pleasant, and a kid that had those injuries and was still able to gut it out and play. Whether he was 100% or not, we don't know, but that was kind of good to see. But Mount Pleasant, defensively just didn't really have an answer for Freeport's offense.
Amos Glenn's a pretty darn good one for the Yellow Jackets, certainly, as is Ross. Well, Greensburg-Salem also lost in the Class 3A bracket, although I think that there was a lot that the Golden Lions can take positive. You mentioned this at the onset. They hung around. They were down early against Avonworth, got back in it, made it a one-score game, I think just a 2 or 3 point game a couple of times. Ultimately, Antelopes win at 43-27, but Avonworth is one of the most proven teams in the entire bracket. Greensburg-Salem, maybe a surprise for most that they even made the playoffs, but they certainly did not look outclassed for most of the night. So season ends, but I think that it's a big step forward and maybe a springboard towards bigger things.
Yeah, and remember, Brody Chismar I mean, he really balled out in the game against Avonworth. Only threw 6 incompletions, 14 of 20 for 259 yards and 4 touchdowns. And again, he's coming back, only a sophomore right now, so he'll be a junior and a senior for the Golden Lions. So I'd imagine that he would continue to put up those big, those big numbers. But when you go up against a kid like Velsarsis, really tough to slow him down. Had a chance to see him last year against Elizabeth Forward. Ran for over 200 yards on Friday against Greensburg-Salem. But again, the Golden Lions, as you mentioned, they hung tough. They were down just 29-27 before Avonworth kind of put the game away. But I think that some real good building blocks this year for Ty George. You finished the year with a win over Southmoreland, a team that at one point was angling for first place in the conference, and then you have a pretty good showing against Avonworth.
Yeah, and remember, the Antelopes had been in the WPIAL championship game each of the past 2 years. So they came up short against Bell Vernon area, but they have been an elite program, and Duke Joncourt has done such a great job that they had their hands full in order for the Antelopes to ultimately move on. And in Class 1A, we got some really good news. Our Westmoreland County teams, well, Monessen lost, but Greensburg-Salem and Jeanette both move on. Centurions 54-20 or 54-38 over Monessen. Flick, you said the scoreboard was lighting up. They got a home game at GCC, and hopefully they paid the electric bill ahead of time. It was just incredible offense. And is it any surprise that Samir Crosby and Tyvon Kershaw stole the show? 2 incredible players who, it's not an exaggeration to say, can literally just about do anything on a football field for their teams.
Yeah, lighting up the scoreboard, and we're going to get another great matchup this week between 2 friends and 2 former teammates in Kimani Brown for Jeanette, and of course Samir Crosby for Greensburg Central Catholic. I don't know what they can do for an encore, because that was absolutely insane, and probably not many people know this. Shauna, you do, but we were producing the WPIAL Soccer Championships as part of NFHS Network on Friday, so a lot of our crew was at Highmark Stadium. Sean, of course, was calling the Penn Trafford game, and then Dave Franzak was over at McKeesport, and so we had, and my brother John Flickinger was calling the Mount Pleasant Freeport game. So we had our crews out, but a lot of the production crew, if you will, was over at Highmark Stadium, and our good pal Greg Bizignani, who is on the sidelines during all Greensburg Central Catholic football games, is the team doctor. Biz was texting me the scores as they were coming in, or as he was seeing them. And it was just insane. My phone kept blowing up. Biz. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane. 65 points again in the first half alone. And we knew it'd be high scoring, but I don't know that any of us thought that it would be that crazy. So definitely, hopefully, actually, Greensburg Central Catholic probably ran out of popcorn, right? At the game on Friday night. But that was a pretty wild game.
It was incredible. And again, Crosby just factoring in on just about every single score, every way imaginable. And Kershaw, it wasn't even 100%, and yet he switched to quarterback because their quarterback was injured. He did a good job throwing the football, running the football. Just some really, if you like offense, that was a game for you. And sometimes you don't get that in some of the larger classifications. It seems like you get maybe some more plodding, low scoring games, kind of like basketball. You get down to single A and you're going to see some robust stats. And certainly those guys provided it. And Jeanette, they provided a stunner. They knock off Neshannock. Not many people expected the Jayhawks to really even probably challenge in that game. They found a way to win it, and they won it 23-7. The defense was incredible. Now, we should note Lancers did lose their quarterback throughout the game, but I think if you ask Coach Paulone, he would feel pretty confident that they were going to find a way to win that game regardless. And it was their star quarterback. We mentioned Crosby for GCC, Brown for Jeanette, who had another terrific game. But really an all-around team effort to limit a team like Neshannock, even if they were slightly compromised, to just 7 points.
Yeah, Gino Mazzacco, he's a really good player, but when he went out of the game, it was 7-7. So Jeanette did a pretty good job against him up to that point. Now, when he got injured, Neshannock did have the ball at the 23-yard line of Jeanette. I think it was late in the second quarter at that point, but he goes out with that injury. Jeanette keeps Neshannock out of the end zone, Sean, and you go into halftime, the Lancers do, losing your leader quickly, unexpectedly, that has to be really hard mentally to come back out in the second half and play knowing you're not going to have them, especially when Jace Powell takes the opening kickoff of the second half, 88 yards for a touchdown. I mean, I think that was probably the game right there. Not only did Jeanette take the lead and take control of the game, it really sent Neshannock reeling even more. They're going out in the second half without their quarterback, without their leader. And then, you hit an 88-yard kickoff return against them. It's like, oh, my God. So I think that was, absolutely massive. But, you mentioned Kimani Brown, 156 yards on the ground, 101 through the air. He continues to do great things for Jeanette. And it's really week after week. It really is incredible what, he and guys like Samir and Kyle Dupil and Tasso Whipple. I mean, it's every single week these guys come to play.
Yeah. And Powell, it seems like, has a knack for making those massive plays. I feel like we've talked about kickoff returns or punt returns all season long when it comes to him. So Jayhawks move on, Centurions move on. We will hear from both of their head coaches just a little bit later on. On the college side of things over the weekend, Seton Hill, a heartbreaking loss at Edinburgh, 24-22. Griffins are now 3-6. And St. Vincent fell against Teal 20-10. The Bearcats struggling. They are just 1-8 on the campaign. Let's look at the top performers from this past week, the first week of the postseason, or week 10, I guess, if you technically want to consider that. Top passer, rusher, and receiver across the WPIAL, and several notable guys from Westmoreland County. Trey Hopper of Montour, the top passer from this past week. He throws for 281 yards. Not far behind Brody Chismar of Greensburg-Salem, as he throws for 270 in the loss for the Golden Lions. We talked about Tyvon Kershaw of Monessen. He goes 8 of 12 for 173 through the air, narrowly ahead of Samir Crosby of GCC, who threw for 169. Cole Chatfield in his final game with Mount Pleasant goes for 160, and the freshman Anthony Smith of Southmoreland, 128 yards passing. Come on, Spell of McKeesport, the top rusher this past week across the WPIAL, came at the expense of Bell Vernon. Spell goes for 277. Kershaw of Monessen, 206 yards rushing. Tasso Whipple of Penn Trafford goes for 158. And Kimani Brown of Jeanette has 156 yards rushing. The top receiver across the WPIAL happens to reside in Westmoreland County. Tavian Taylor of Monessen had 6 grabs for 144 yards. In that same game, Landon Honick of Greensburg Central Catholic, 5 catches for 126. And Greensburg-Salem's Max Topper had 3 grabs for an even 100 yards. That'll do it from the week 10, or the first week of the playoff scores and top performers. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will have plays of the week. And a little bit later on, we'll look at all of the brackets remaining Class 1A through 5A. And we have 4 great interviews. John Ruane, Lance Getsy, John Thompson, and Thomas Paulone. That's as we continue another playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
That's the power of Bowser.
Drive like a champion with Bowser Chevrolet of Monroeville. You're always on the winning team with Bowser Chevrolet. Visit BowserChevrolet.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get the power of Bowser in your hands. Customize your payments, apply for financing, get a value for your trade and more with the Bowser Express Store. See the full lineup of Chevy cars, trucks, and SUVs at BowserChevrolet.com. Bowser Chevrolet, where the power of Bowser is yours.
Coming winter 2024, DBAT Pittsburgh East will be bringing the DBAT Sports family to Pittsburgh's East neighborhoods, featuring a 20,000 square foot state-of-the-art baseball and softball training facility with 4 dual Fungoman automatic pitching machines, 9 lesson cages featuring the best training tech in the game, including pro-sized baseball and fast-pitch bullpens, elite speed, strength, and agility coaching, professional baseball and softball instruction, 50-plus camps, clinics, party room, and a pro shop powered by pro-preferred brands Rawlings and Easton. Now offering Founders Club memberships. Learn more at dbatpiteast.com.
We roll along here on another playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron every Wednesday on the Westmoreland Sports Network. We appreciate everyone tuning in tonight and hopefully all season long. You can go back and check out all of the old episodes. And if you do, you know that our favorite segment each and every week, Flick, is
Plays of the week.
There you go. Let's get into it. We got a couple from Penn Trafford. We'll begin with play number 1 of the Warriors, and it was Derek Carr who provided a hat trick for PT, scoring 3 rushing touchdowns in their win against South Fayette last Friday. His second score late in the first half put Penn Trafford ahead 21-7, as called by myself and John Bainbridge.
They're going to keep Carr in with Whipple behind him. We've seen Carr have a little bit more success throwing as this season's gone along. He's 8 of 12 passing. This time he's going to run at Whipple, the elite blocker for him. Carr battling, and he gets in again. A 14-yard touchdown for Derek Carr.
He left 5 white shirts on the ground on his path to the end zone. I mean, you talk about Whipple being powerful. Carr also is.
Great stuff from Carr. Again, we mentioned part of that dynamic, or I guess terrific trio of running backs. He, Whipple, and Grabowski, in addition to Johnny Luber.
I was going to say, even Luber got a rushing touchdown last week.
He did. He kind of got pushed into the end zone, but it still counts.
Whatever.
He gets it's the Jalen Hurts thing. You still get credit for it, so you get the fantasy points for Johnny Luber's touchdown if you have him. Well, we'll go to our another play of the week at Penn Trafford, and while the offense for the Warriors, it was nearly unstoppable all night, the defense provided a big play too, and it came courtesy of Tassa Whipple, who notched a pick 6 to extend the lead in the fourth quarter, with myself and John, again, detailing the action.
2nd and 10. Horsky, play action. He's had a good pocket. It's intercepted at the 45, and maybe another chance for a pick 6. It's Tassa Whipple. He's in. 45-yard interception return for Whipple.
I don't think Woharski saw Whipple underneath. And again, I don't know for sure, but it looked like Whipple baited him into throwing it, picked it off, and you could tell he's a running back at the end of that run inside the 10. He made 2 people miss and flew into the end zone, literally.
Great stuff from Tassa Whipple, who, as a linebacker, is maybe just as good as he is on the other side of the football. I'm going to be very curious to see where he ends up at the next level. I would imagine probably leaning running back, but I'm sure there's some coaches that are thinking, hey, let's get this guy on the defensive side, and he can do some really good things there, as he showed.
Well, hey, look at the guy he replaced at Wisconsin, right? Iacobelli went as a safety, and now he's a running back.
He is.
You never know.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's one thing I can say about a lot of high school players is they're very versatile at that level. Rarely do they get the opportunity at the next level, but it's always good to have in your back pocket that you can maybe play 2 positions on opposite sides of the ball at a pretty high level. We'll wrap up plays of the week with Mount Pleasant area, and although the Viking season ended with a loss against Freeport last week, Cole Chatfield and Jared Garn continue to produce big plays. The duo hooked up again for a first quarter score that pulled Mount Pleasant within 3. John Flickinger and Derek Molnar paint the picture.
Chatfield from the gun, 2 receivers to the right, including Garn. Man in motion is Suchar. Back is Chatfield, throws down the middle. He's got Garn. He makes the catch to the 10, and Garn is into the end zone for a Mount Pleasant Viking touchdown.
There's that play action we talked about earlier. You really got to keep your eyes on 87. They'll try to hide him in various formations, and they had him at the wing spot, and they faked the jet sweep and hit him deep down the seam. That's one of their favorite route combinations for that kid.
Beautifully designed play call.
How about the cameo appearance from Derek Molnar working alongside your brother?
Because, oh, man, he had so much. Did you see the picture
familiar.
he tweeted out? He had so much fun. I mean, I think those guys froze because they were outside the press box. You can only see half the field, but so much for hospitality. Anyway, yeah, I think he had a lot of fun doing it. If you don't know Mole, they call him Mole. He's nuts. I mean, the guy, like, you can hear him. I mean, Derry could be practicing, and 3 miles away, you can hear Mole screaming about something. So whether it can be positive or negative. So he's a good dude.
Well, that will do it for plays of the week. We will take a quick break. When we come back, we will have 4 coaches' interviews, and we will run down the brackets 5A through 1A as well. That's upcoming right here on the special playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Along the arc of a woman's life, there are many passages. Growing up, chasing dreams, building a career, embracing wisdom born of experience. There are times that make good health and well-being so vital. We provide care that helps women thrive at any age, at any stage. Independence Health System. Expert care here.
It's prime time for prime rib at D'Annunzio's every Friday and Saturday night. Get yourself a 12-ounce queen cut for $26 or a 16-ounce king cut for $29. The prime rib is seasoned, slow roasted, served with au jus and horseradish, vegetables, and a choice of pasta or potato, and comes with super salad too. Remember, D'Annunzio's prime rib special every Friday and Saturday after 4 at all 3 of our restaurant locations.
We continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We've got some big interviews to get to momentarily. We'll talk to John Ruane of Penn Trafford, Lance Getsy of Franklin Regional, John Thompson at Greenford Central Catholic, and Thomas Paulone of Jeanette. Let's look at the brackets. And Flick, as we mentioned, no need to even look at 6A because nothing happened. All the teams were just sitting around having a good time last week. The semifinals, the 4 teams will take the field this Friday to see who moves on to Norwin High School for the Class 6A championship. So we'll start in Class 5A, and some of these games we've already touched on. Number 1, Pine Richland, they had a bye. They will face 9-seeded Franklin Regional, who scored a 17-16 win over North Hills. Same side of the bracket, 4-seeded Woodland Hills, also coming off of a bye, will go against Bethel Park, the 5th-seeded Blackhawks, defeating Greater Latrobe 42-7. On the other side, the number 2 seed Upper St. Clair Panthers, they will match up against 7-seeded Penn Hills as the Indians scored a terrific game in the 7-10 matchup. 7-seeded Penn Hills edges Moon 30-27. And Peters Township, the number 3 seed, also a bye. They will go against number 6 Penn Trafford, who scored that 49-28 victory over South Fayette. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds all got byes. That means they will all be at home this weekend. And so pretty much all according to chalk, with the one exception of the very slight upset, number 9 Franklin Regional knocking off number 8 North Hills. But I really think that I love the 5A bracket every year. This is going to be just 4 incredible matchups on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to people. I'm like, hey, do you think Penn Trafford has and they say, heck yeah, they have a chance. You know, it's, again, I know maybe you can't put them all in a hat and draw them out, but like pretty much, right? It's really interesting, you know, going into the playoffs. I knew, you know, 5A would kind of be, you know, crapshoot like this. And so we'll see how everything kind of plays out.
Yeah, I would say there's no doubt that if Franklin Regional knocks off Pine Richland, that would be a stunner. But I think the other 3 matchups you could kind of argue could go either way. And let's be honest, Franklin Regional's already pulled off one upset when you factor in the fact that they didn't have probably their best player on the offensive side. So can't count anyone out. If you're still playing football at this point, you're obviously a very good team that has gotten this far for a reason. And speaking of really good teams, that applies to Penn Trafford, and that applies to their head coach, John Ruane. He is one of the best that not only Westmoreland County, but the WPIAL has to offer. He knows all about Peters Township. We have seen some great postseason matchups between these teams in recent years. This will be another one on Friday night. Let's now hear from John Ruane, the head coach of Penn Trafford. Well, a lot of points put up on the board, and your offense, I thought, was outstanding, John. In particular, the running game. Tasso Whipple, as always, but Derek Carr and even Ben Grabowski having his first big performance of the year. What did you like most about how your team was able to run the football?
Well, I think those guys did great, but it really starts with the effort up front. Our linemen, you know, normally I'd say 5, but Bryce had an injury there, and we brought in a 6-man Stu Fowle, and even a 7th man, David Dietrich. Those guys played really, really well, accompanied with Jacob Briggs and Don Smith and Michael Bodeye, our tight end group. I just think we really established a line of scrimmage, created some gaps. You know, South Fayette's a really good tackling team, and it's not like we broke a lot of home runs, but we definitely got to the 2nd and 3rd level because of a great effort up front.
Well, you mentioned Dietrich. He got rewarded with a fumble recovery in the end zone for a touchdown late in that game. I'm sure that was a pretty cool moment. What was that like for him?
Yeah, that's a rare one there. I mean, first since I've been here, I think. Yeah, that was great, and it just shows you play hard through the whistle, hustle towards the football, and good things will happen. So it was a good moment for him.
Well, I've talked so much about Tasso Whipple this year. We'll focus on the other 2 guys who had just outstanding running games. Derek Carr, we know that he's been very good this season when called upon as a runner. He's kind of mixed in the passing game more as the season's gone on. But he ran very motivated, maybe even angry at times, it looked like, from my perspective. He had 3 touchdowns. Why did you use him as much as you did in the running game, and how did he answer the bell?
I think it was pretty consistent with his number of carries we've had all year. He's about a 10 to 12 carry guy. Derek just has a knack for finding creases, and he's been excellent around the goal line. That was part of our idea at the beginning of the year. This guy was going to be more of our goal line guy because he can run in, throw, and we feel like we found a niche for him offensively. But he definitely runs with some want-to, and that certainly showed on Friday. I think the other factor is with Ben back, Tasso doesn't have to carry it 25, 30 times now. We have the ability to give him a spell and still have 2 outstanding runners with the football in their hands. So it's something we wanted to do at the beginning of the year. Ben's injury kind of prevented us from that a little bit, but Derek's been awesome from day one.
So Grabowski got just 1 touch in your second to last regular season game. I don't think he got any against Greater Latrobe, and then you bust him out in a big way for this playoff matchup. How did you ease him back in? How did he respond to that? And was that something that you kind of had planned maybe even a week in advance, that you kind of wanted to save him for this moment?
I don't think we wanted to save him. We just don't think he was ready. He came straight out of a booth and got cleared with no rehab, no strength training, not even any endurance training because he wasn't allowed to do anything on that foot. And I don't want to say it was rushed. We wanted to test the waters against Armstrong, so that's why he played sparingly there. We felt as though, maybe another week, the Latrobe week would be good for him to just practice and get himself back together. And I think that was the right decision in hindsight. He's definitely stronger than he was, more in shape, more football ready, and the foot seems to be good to go.
Well, South Fayette had a very impressive offense in its own right. Their quarterback was outstanding, a couple of good receivers, and their running backs as well, I thought, impressed. So you had a real challenge on your hands. How did you evaluate how your defense played against them?
Yeah, he was outstanding. He was at his best when we covered for an extended period of time, and he just kind of broke contain and scrambled. He ran for big yards on those, and he kept plays alive. He had a couple 4th down plays, which we really wanted to get off the field. And it's a very good football player, and those guys are battle tested, and they did a good job all season long. But I thought our defense really stepped up in the second half and kind of stopped that. Very limited them to minimal points, minimal yardage when we needed to, and Tasso's pick 6 was a huge part of that second half.
So you get the first playoff win since you won the state title in 2021, and I would imagine, especially for the seniors, it had to feel incredible. What was that moment like afterwards? How big of a goal was that was achieved?
Yeah, it's not the ultimate goal. It was definitely something we all talked about at length. We want that to be the norm. We don't want it to be overly exciting to win a playoff game. We want to get back to our program being, making a run each year, being in the semis of the championship and beyond. Yeah, it was a good feeling, especially after the last couple of years. And the kids responded well to the challenge all week. And, hopefully we can do it again.
So with this bracket in 5A expanding, that meant that the top 4 seeds all got buys. Peters Township, the number 3 seed, did not play last week. That's your opponent now. From your perspective, is that a benefit that your team did just play, or do you think it's a benefit for Peters Township getting to rest up over the past week and do nothing but kind of prepare for this matchup?
There's definitely pros and cons of each. In 21, we got the bye, and I didn't think I'd like it. I didn't think I'd like breaking routine and having a week off and almost going into our game stale, but it turned out it was fantastic. We got everybody healthy. We had 2 weeks to prepare. We worked on our own self-scouting and just fundamental stuff. So it's a big advantage for them, I'll be honest. But at the same time, that's life. They earned it, we didn't. And now we have to go out and compete and do something with it. But I'm sure they took 2 weeks to prepare for us, considering they already played South Fayette. So I'm sure they've looked at a lot of film on us.
Well, they're a terrific team. They're the defending champions in this classification. I thought last year they turned in one of the most impressive seasons in recent memory for a 5A team. What stands out this year about them? How good are they, and are they as good as that team last year that went all the way?
I think they are as good. I think that they have a lot of experience at a lot of key positions. A lot of guys that were on that team last year. Offensively, it starts with the quarterback. Great arm. He runs well. He avoids the rush well. He keeps plays alive. They have a good run game. They're up tempo. They're a lot of play action, a lot of screen game, and they do all of it efficiently. They have a very big, strong offensive line that has really dominated at times. You flip it to their defense. We think their bookend outside linebackers are the key to their defense. They set the edge and they funnel everything back inside to a really good defensive line and inside linebacker. And then they have 5 guys in the secondary that play man-to-man nonstop. They do it well. They play the run well. So the one thing about Peters that everyone agrees on is you're going to have a tough time outflanking them with the scheme they use defensively. They just make sure they match all of your players at all times. So, you pretty much have to line up and outperform them if you want to win the game. That's easier said than done, but we certainly like the way we're playing, and we're going to try to go attack that.
Lastly, I know you have some postseason history against the Indians. This would be a massive victory for your program, not only to make it to the semifinals, but to knock off one of the best teams over the past handful of years. So how big is this game, and what's your approach, and what's the players' approach heading into it?
Yeah, it's an enormous game. I'm not going to hide that. Our kids are, hopefully going to play with that senior desperation of, hey, this is my last game. If we don't win it, move on. And I think that's a really big factor. And obviously Peters has seniors as well thinking the same way. I don't know. We have a really tight-knit group. This has been a real blessing of a season for us just to work with these guys. And I think they really want to keep playing. I think they really want to win the game. Not for any reason other than, let's just live another week together here and see what we can do. But, it's going to take a great effort across the board. We can't kill ourselves with turnovers and stupid penalties and be behind the sticks because they'll make you pay for it. So, I hate to say play mistake-free, but we really have to limit the mistakes to a bare minimum.
Well, John, it should be a great matchup. Certainly we are looking forward to it. Congrats on the win last week, and hopefully you can keep it up this Friday as well.
Thanks a lot, Sean. I appreciate it.
And as always, we appreciate John taking the time to talk about the imposing matchup of Peters Township. I think it's going to be Penn Trafford's going to have to play nearly perfect. And you can't say that as a coach because that puts too much pressure on your team. But I think he kind of alluded to it. They can't make those costly mistakes whatsoever against Peters Township. This is the defending champion in 5A for a reason. The Indians are really, really good. So that will be an interesting matchup Penn Trafford will have to play. It probably its best game of the season, but I would say they're coming off of maybe one of their best games of the season against South Fayette. Well, another team that's going to have to play nearly flawlessly in order to move on is Franklin Regional, the number 9 seed going against top-ranked Pine Richland. Talk about another program that's year in and year out in this position. The Rams, who made it to a championship game last year in 5A, they certainly look the part of a title contender once again this year, but Franklin Regional is going to show up and do everything it can to try to spoil the party. Let's now hear from their head coach, Lance Getsy, talking about Pine Richland and Franklin Regional. Lance, a true thriller. And to be completely honest, when I saw your team won, I was expecting to see another massive performance by Kyle Dupill. He played a kind of a limited role on Friday night, but your team still found a way to win. So what stood out about the effort in getting that win against the Indians?
This is a team sport. It takes 11 on the field at once to play together. And I think our kids all responded. Jude is a very capable running back. Did a lot of splitting time last year with Kyle. Plays a lot more defense this year. So, try to rest him on offense as much as possible. But, we're comfortable with Jude back there and confident in his abilities as well.
And to get the game-winning score, you had to go a little bit into your bag, I guess, huh? The younger Davola, Cole Davola, had a big touchdown reception, a guy who's not really targeted very much, if it all came through. So what went into that play, and how did it work to perfection?
Oh, just something we've had in for weeks, but never really had the opportunity to run it. And it was just the perfect timing. It was just a hurry up, get on the ball, don't give them time to think, and our kids executed. And Cole's a kid that, made a big catch earlier in the game down the middle of the field as well. So, I think we had him and Mac Bresnahan wide open. So either one would have been a good selection.
So I know when Dupill was, probably unable to continue playing in that game, there had to be a moment where maybe you're thinking, are we going to have enough to win this game? Did you see your team in any way kind of doubt how they would respond to that? Or is this something that you knew right away that they would be able to overcome mentally?
Yeah, I don't think we never man up. Somebody can't go. We just can. When you lose a kid like Austin Kearns for the year, who is linebacker, H-back, and not having him out, our kids just all responded even without him. So, that's football. You're going to have to be able to make adjustments without with some injuries at times. And it's just always that mentality of next man up. Let's go. This is a team sport. It takes 11.
I'm sure that you would love to have Kyle back, and he would love to be back. What's the outlook for his status?
Yeah, I think Kyle will be back this week. I mean, he just wasn't under the weather, and we're looking forward to seeing what he can do on Friday.
Well, you're going to need him. You're going to need all hands on deck. You go against a Pine Richland team that has been so dominant. But do you feel as though that win, already winning a road game and knocking off a better seed, albeit a slight because it was the 8-9 matchup, does that give you a little bit of momentum to kind of springboard forward?
I think 5A football is just tough across the board, week in, week out. We played a lot of close games. We got battle tested against an Upper St. Clair, and we really learned our lesson there. They taught us a lot about ourselves and what we need to do and improve on. So, we just have been in close game after close game. So we've come from behind. We've held leads where like Gateway started coming back. And we've done, had every type of game this year. So our kids are battle tested. We have a lot of seniors on the team. There's no give up on this with this group, but we also know Pine Richland's a really good football team. They have a lot of weapons and they're big up front. So it's going to take, our guys' best efforts to be able to accomplish what we want to this Friday.
So you're coming off of that thrilling win. The Rams are coming off of a bye, and I'm sure that they probably aren't complaining because they probably got a little bit healthy, got well rested heading into this matchup. Do you think there's an advantage one way or another?
When it comes to Friday night, I don't know if there is. I mean, everybody wants that bye. Everybody wants to get a little bit healthier. But we kept our routine. Sometimes there's something to be said for that. We've seen upsets of teams that took that bye and had that time off and didn't accomplish what they wanted. We've seen teams that had that bye and really excelled from that and took that rest the right way and still were able to accomplish what they wanted to. So I just look at it as this Friday night's another night. It's high school football. You only have so many opportunities. Let's get it going because I think our kids are excited about the opportunity.
Well, they have such a great program, and now they have had success under John Ladon, who came over after so much success at Penn Hills. He got them to a championship last year, and again, they're probably one of the favorites to go back to a title game this year. What makes them so good?
I think their physicality. They got a really big offensive and defensive line, and they fly around. But I really feel like in 5A, like what you have up front really matters. It's a lot different coaching up at this level than in a single or double A level, just because of it's almost like a small college whenever you go up to Pine Richland. So that's where up front is where you win and lose games at this level for sure.
Is it as simple as coming down to your team having to match them in the trenches, or is there other aspects that you think will ultimately dictate the outcome?
Well, you got to match them up front. You got to be able to take advantage of the opportunities. So when you're playing a tough team like this, these playoff teams, your opportunities are limited. And if you have something wide open one time against a good team, it's not going to be open up the next time. When you play teams that aren't as experienced or as good, sometimes you can come back to something that's wide open. So you got to be able to take advantage of those opportunities the first time and be able to, keep them on their toes and off balance with a good passing and running attack. And then defensively, we have to be gap sound and not give up the big play.
You've had such great success at Franklin Regional. You've won a conference title, but how important was it to win a postseason game a week ago?
I think it was important. It's always important. You always want to keep playing. But the way I told the kids, I said, this is no different from the last 3 years. I mean, they only took 8 teams and we're in the final 8 again this year. So what are we going to do to take the next step? Let's get to the Final Four somehow.
Well, lastly, to do so, you'll have to pull off a pretty stunning upset. Is that something that you and your team can embrace, kind of being the underdog that not many people are picking to win?
Yeah, I think that's we love being the underdog. I think we've been an underdog in almost every game that we've played this year. I don't think anybody picked us to beat North Hills. I don't think people pick, and we did it without one of the top running back in 5A. So I think that people always underestimate us. We're okay with that role. We want to go out and prove that we can play some football.
Well, certainly you played some football last week, and Lance hopefully continues this Friday as well. Thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate it, and good luck.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Coming winter 2024, DBAT Pittsburgh East will be bringing the DBAT sports family to Pittsburgh's East neighborhoods, featuring a 20,000 square foot state-of-the-art baseball and softball training facility with 4 dual Fungoman automatic pitching machines, 9 lesson cages featuring the best training tech in the game, including pro-sized baseball and fast-pitch bullpens, elite speed, strength, and agility coaching, professional baseball and softball instruction, 50-plus camps, clinics, party room, and a pro shop powered by pro-preferred brands Rawlings and Easton. Now offering Founders Club memberships. Learn more at dbatpiteast.com.
At Smale Kia, we know that winning takes hard work, dedication, and a commitment to excellence. By sponsoring Shining Stars, we'll select 2 teams each season to help fund their booster programs. Rewarding their hard work, athletic progress, and community service is an investment we're proud to make. Right now, lease a 2025 Kia Sportage EX all-wheel drive, $299 a month, or lease a 2024 Kia Forte LXS for only $175 a month. Route 30 East Greensburg or smalekia.com.
Shula General Contractors specializes in transforming the most important space, your home. With our team, your kitchen, bathroom, basement remodel, deck, or addition will be constructed by licensed, insured professionals. We also have extensive background in new home construction with building lots available in Penn Township. As an approved VA builder, we make life at home easier for our most deserving heroes. Call 724-744-4290 or shulacontractors.com.
Hi, this is Chuck Honkus, and it's been my honor to serve you for nearly a decade as Penn Township Commissioner. Friday Night Football in Penn Trafford is not just a game, it's a tradition that spans many generations. I am blessed to be a part of this special community with my family and friends. Good luck to the Penn Trafford players, coaches, band, and cheerleaders on another great season. Paid for by friends of Chuck Honkus.
Money is more than a number or your bank account balance. Money is one of the culminations of your life's work. We at Hoffman Wealth Management want to learn about who you are, hear your goals, your dreams, and what you want to do in your life. We're more than just financial advisors. We're your partners on life's path. Hoffman Wealth Management views ourselves as an extension of your team. Contact us today to embark on a partnership that puts your goals and aspirations at the forefront.
We appreciate both of those head coaches taking their time. I know every coach at this time of year, Flick, they're stressed. They're not sleeping a whole lot. They're probably every waking hour spent on preparation for their team, on the opponent. So we appreciate all these guys.
Hey, how much do you think Humbert's going to miss you this year, right? I mean, you talked to him the last 2 years, like every week of
yes,
the
I think he got really sick of it by the end, but I guess the positive way to look at it was that meant that they were still alive every week and they were winning football games. So
yes.
Yeah, he probably will miss it in retrospect. I'm sure he wishes he was talking to me this week, but as we now look at the 4A bracket, unfortunately, that's not the case. 1, 7, 3, and 4 advance out of this bracket. So there was one big upset in Class 4A. We'll get to that momentarily, but no upset for top-seeded Thomas Jefferson. Jaguars taking care of business. They did not have an easy matchup, but they won 28-7 against West Allegheny. Same side of the bracket, Aliquippa, the 4-seed, edges Trinity 34-14. So Thomas Jefferson and Aliquippa will play at Chartiers Valley on Friday in a 1-4 matchup. By the way, Aliquippa has made it to a WPIAL championship, I think, 16 straight years?
Yeah.
I think Thomas Jefferson should be favored in this game. So we'll see how it plays out. But this is maybe the stiffest test that the Quips will have to continue that streak of championship appearances. Mention an upset on the other side. It came in form of number 7 Mars as they knock off second-seeded Montour 48-42. Now, the Spartans were without several key players who were suspended for that game, but full marks go to the Fighting Planets. They move on. They will play number 3 McKeesport. As we talked about earlier, the Tigers with a 34-11 victory at the expense of Bell Vernon area. So it's number 7 Mars, number 3 McKeesport at Gateway's Antamarino Stadium. That will take place at 7 on Friday. And the championship in Class 4A, since we're already in the semifinals, that will be Saturday, November 16th at Norwin High School. That's the same day as the Class 6A championship. Looking at the 3A bracket, Amani Christian, the top seed, earned a bye, so they await the winner, and they now know their opponent. It is number 9 Highlands, after Highlands scored a 56-20 victory over Southmoreland. Amani will host that game at Graham Field in Wilkinsburg. Number 4 Beaver also had a bye. They will go against 5th-seeded Avonworth as the Antelopes edged Greensburg-Salem 43-27 in that 5-12 matchup. That will take place at Beaver High School. Other side of the bracket, 2nd-seeded Central Valley coming off of a bye will host 7th-seeded Freeport. The Yellow Jackets winning 44-20 against number 10 Mount Pleasant. And Elizabeth Forward, the number 3 seed, will be at home after a first-round bye, going against North Catholic, the 11 seed. They pulled off a little bit of an upset as the Trojans knocked off number 6 Deer Lakes 21-14. That will be 3 versus 11 in that quarterfinals matchup. Championship will be November 23rd down in Acrisure at 5 o'clock. All of our Westmoreland County teams, unfortunately, eliminated from that bracket. There was none that even made it in Class 2A. We'll quickly look at the brackets in this classification. Number 1 Seton LaSalle will go against number 9 Riverside. That will be at Dormont Stadium. Number 4 Steel Valley against number 5 Western Beaver will take place at Moon. Number 2 South Park against number 7 Mohawk will be at South Park. And number 3 Elwood City will host number 6 South Allegheny. So with one very small exception, that bracket went chalk. The only upset in parentheses, number 9 Riverside knocking off number 8 Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. Now we turn to the Class 1A bracket, and this is an enjoyable one for us here in Westmoreland County because we have a terrific showdown that we will touch on momentarily with both head coaches. Number 1 Fort Cherry, an absolute juggernaut as they take care of business. The Rangers winning 56-14 against number 16 Brentwood. That means Fort Cherry into the quarterfinals where they will face number 9 Cornell, as Cornell claimed a 34-20 victory over Leechburg, the number 8 seed, sees its season. And a little bit of a surprising outcome there after the Blue Devils had such a great season that unfortunately ended on a 2-game losing streak. Number 4, Neshannock, stunned by 13-seeded Jeanette. It's the Jayhawks who move on with their 23-7 victory. Who will they go against? They will go against their old rival, number 5 Greensburg Central Catholic, as the Centurions won 54-38. That matchup will be at Norwin High School. We will have coverage of it on the Westmoreland Sports Network, and we'll talk to both head coaches momentarily. Other side of the bracket, Clairton, well, this is what they've done all season. The number 2 seed Bears win 56-0 against Rochester. They get another shutout. They will go against number 10 California as the Trojans knocked off number 7 Laurel 22-6. Number 3 Bishop Canevin, just like Clairton, winning 56-0. They did it against number 14 Bentworth. And number 11 Southside Beaver with a little bit of an upset, 39-30. They knock off the Jefferson Morgan Rockets. Those matchups will take place at Charleroi in the Clairton, California matchup, and South Fayette in the Bishop Canevin Southside Beaver matchup. Flick, this was the one bracket more than any other that you did see some surprising outcomes. Certainly did not go according to chalk. 1 versus 9, 13 versus 5, 2 versus 10, 3 versus 11. So there was no chalk outcomes in terms of the quarterfinals matchup. But the one that we have our eye on, our focus is on that 5-13. Second time this year, Greensburg Central Catholic and Jeanette, and of course, only fitting that it take place in Westmoreland County at Norwin High School.
Gotta love it, man. I mean, you know, no matter who won out of GCC and Monessen, it was obviously going to be a Westmoreland County team, but you love to see Greensburg Central Catholic take it and then Jeanette pull off the big upset so they could play each other in the quarterfinals. And, you know, to do it at a close high school as well at Norwin, that's really cool. So I hope the fans show out, and I hope it's a great game.
Yeah, typically they try to get a location that's in between the schools, but
I thought maybe
I don't even know if there is anything in between
but,
Jeanette and Greensburg Central Catholic.
That's true. I thought maybe Hempfield. Those two teams have played at Hempfield in the past. I can remember actually football and basketball, but it's going to be at Norland.
And by the way, I'm going to touch on this with the coaches, but you speak of basketball, Flick. Do you remember Greensburg Central Catholic boys basketball winning in the regular season twice against Jeanette, both fairly convincing, and they meet in the postseason, and what happens? It's the Jayhawks who win. So GCC winning pretty comfortably in the regular season. Let's just say that means nothing for Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you look back at that game too, Sean, some things really went haywire at the end of the second quarter against Jeanette. I think they gave up a safety, and then on the ensuing kick, they kicked it out of bounds, and they kicked it again, and then GCC ran it back for a touchdown. So some crazy things happened at the end of the second quarter too, which, if you're GCC, hey, you took advantage of it. But if you're Jeanette, you're thinking if we avoided that, maybe the game would have been different. So I think everyone expects this to be a good one, a close one.
And two programs that invariably are linked. Two coaches that I think have a lot of respect and admiration for another. Let's hear first from Greensburg Central Catholic's JT, John Thompson, talking about this matchup against the rival Jayhawks. I'm sure that was a roller coaster of emotions to be on the sideline for. A lot of points at the end of the day. Your team found a way to win. So how did it play out? And was it something that you anticipated could be that high scoring going in?
I was hoping it wasn't going to be, but it did. You look at halftime, it was 33-32, and I'm like, what is going on? As a defensive guy, you take pride on keeping, the score low. And I'm like, all right, we went up 13-0. And, I'm like, guys, keep your head in it. Let's stay in this thing. It's not over. And, lo and behold, they made a bunch of plays, and it was back and forth in that first half. No, I didn't anticipate it to be, a shootout like that, but you never know what you're going to get on any Friday night.
Well, I think that's particularly true against the Greyhounds because you didn't even know what you're going to get at quarterback. And they moved, one of the best players in all of the WPIAL in terms of production this year, Tyvon Kershaw, to a position that he's rarely, if ever, played at the high school level. He was taking their snaps primarily at quarterback. So how much of a wrinkle was that, and how did your team ultimately adjust?
They had shown a little bit of it in previous games, the two games that we, had that some Wildcat stuff and running it, throwing it. Didn't anticipate, such an unconventional offense that they showed us, because of the injuries that they had. They were banged up, and I believe their quarterback had an injured hand. I mean, even Kershaw had a broken toe. And boy, you talk about toughness and perseverance that kid showed. It was unbelievable what he did, but yeah, it was unconventional. The stuff that they were doing, kind of put us on our heels. Again, we had enough in the end. We played a really good second half. I think we got our feet underneath us, got adjusted to what they were doing. But it took us a little while, to make that adjustment. And offensively, man, we just exploded. I'm sure we'll get to it here shortly, but Samir just had a night. It was awesome to see him, fun to watch.
Yeah, kind of reminiscent of how your season began. You won a high-scoring fair game that was played, I think, in the 40s. This time you get into the 50s in the victory, and obviously Crosby was a big part of that. But so is Landon Honick. He has really emerged this year as a terrific receiver, and he had another big performance. How has he made such an impact?
No question. I mean, he's got a lot of speed on the outside, pretty much catches everything that comes his way. Had an uncharacteristic drop in the middle, but he came back, and those three big scores were huge, and obviously the outcome of the game. But he has really progressed and gotten better as a player throughout the whole season, and it's been fun to watch him grow.
When you get into the postseason, and obviously you had success last year, you've had success winning another game this year. Do you notice that the star players have to elevate their play even more and you rely upon them even more? Or is it the opposite, where teams are able to scheme kind of the best players out and you need other players to step up maybe more than they would during the regular season typically?
Yeah, it's the latter. I mean, yeah, everybody, at this point, we all have, that star player who makes things happen, but it's the guys around him that can make those, make additional plays and help support, like Samir, it takes it to that next level of where we need to be. And Landon has done that. Jackson McMullen, Jackson Loudon is another kid for us who just had a player who had a great game for us offensively. Solid running the ball and it's like I said, we have a few sophomores and freshmen that have progressed and developed throughout the whole season, and it's been fun to watch them grow and see how much better that they get week to week. And we need it. It's all hands on deck, man. We need it this week. There's no question about it.
How significant was it to have that true home game? Because I know that is something that has been elusive in recent years for GCC. Did it feel like a major difference as opposed to playing to a neutral site that technically would be considered a home game for you?
Yeah. I mean, compared to last year, our home game was at Plum, and it was just it's obviously a beautiful facility, and we appreciated them hosting us and taking care of us, but it's not home, and it was just an awkward feeling there last year. And, being at home, it being in our own locker room, having our team meal in our cafeteria, being able to do the things that we, can do at home, helps you breathe a little bit and takes that stress off of the travel and everything that goes along those lines. So, it was awesome. It was a little chilly night. We had a good crowd, and we did it the right way. We had some tailgating going on and a DJ, and so our fans showed up, and we're loud, and they're supporting us and help big time.
You got that first playoff win in quite a while a year ago. To get another one this year, how important was that to, I guess, kind of solidify what this program is?
Right. Yeah. Last year, they're going into it, and there wasn't a lot of expectation for us, to even compete for, the conference, and we were able to do that, and then to reach the playoffs, and then, taking it was, great motivation for our seniors, and juniors and sophomores. Samir was a sophomore then, and to try and take this thing to the next level, and that's our goal. And it's just not now like we hope to make the playoffs. It's an expectation, right? I mean, that's got to be our goal every year, obviously, is to make the playoffs. But I want to get it to the point in building this program where those are expectations. It's not that easy. I get it. I understand, but it's that work that we want to put into the program, developing our boys, to get them better, to have more confidence, and year after year, to get there. And this was another big step of doing that, and winning Friday night.
So take me into this past Friday, because you're obviously focused on your game solely until it concludes. But once you secured that victory, 000 on the clock, how quickly do you try to get intel on what's happening in the other games, in particular, Jeanette and Neshannock? And what was your reaction when you found out it would be the Jayhawks?
I like, somebody came up to me right after and immediately told me, and I was like, what? And anything can happen, and just because you're a 4 seed or a 13 seed or a 5 seed or a 12 seed, I mean, anything can happen. You look at GCC, was it 3 years ago or 4 years ago? They were, I think, a 3 seed and played 15 seed Rochester, and Rochester, rolled us. So yeah, that's why we play the game, right? Anything can happen during a game. Injuries happen, breaks and big plays happen, turnovers, all those things can happen. And I put on that film. I couldn't wait to watch it. And Jeanette put it on them. They put it on them. They played well. They played hard. And I'm like, this team's good, man. And this team, they've gotten a lot better throughout the season. And I could see that immediately.
I know, at least in past years, there's been a lot of football players who have also suited up for basketball season for the Centurions. Not sure how many guys you have this year that'll be playing basketball, but if they played last year, I'm sure they remember what happened when they went against Jeanette in the postseason after defeating the Jayhawks in the regular season. Does that matter at all when it happens in another sport? Does that kind of put the players on notice if they were part of that?
Sure, it does. I think in any sport it will. This game has got a new life to it. It's got a new soul. It's got a new heart. It's not going to be the same. Like I said, I think they're a lot better than when we played them the first time. And they could throw on the tape from our game back then and see that they had plays there that they could have made it a difference. Made a difference in the game. Same for us. I mean, I know we won the game, but there were some things that we need to improve on, and at this point where both of our teams are more mature. We know who we have and what we've got to do. But yeah, I mean, anything can happen in any sport, and you can't take it for granted because you played them earlier and you beat them. Because now it's a new season now, man. It is now. It's survive and advance, and that's exactly what it is. So. Like I'm gonna talk to the kids about tonight, man. Like I just said, this game is gonna have its own life, and we came out ahead earlier. That's great, right? But now we've got to we can't rely on that. It's not going to happen again. The same way as far as outcome goes. We're going to have to put the work in. We're going to have to play 4 quarters. All that along those lines.
What stood out about your team's performance the first time you played Jeanette, and what will be key this time around?
It's putting all 3 phases together: offense, defense, and special teams. And we got to put all 3 together. On Friday night versus Vanessa, we put 2 in there. Our offense and special teams were the difference. Defensively, we didn't play that well. We need to get better on that side of the ball. And we're not going to be able to have that kind of, luck, or, it's got to be better preparation on our end, going into it Friday night.
And lastly, I know this is at Norwin, so it's not a long trek for either your team or the Jayhawks. I would imagine it's going to be an awesome environment. Can you and your players kind of take that in and enjoy it, or is that something that could be becoming a distraction if you think even for a second about that while you're ready to, kick the ball off?
No, I don't think it'll be a distraction. I mean, let's go play. Let's put the ball down. The lights are on, the whistle blows, and let's go. And it is. It's going to be. I can't wait. To see the environment there. It's going to be a packed house. It's going to be a fun game to watch. So we're looking forward to it.
Well, JT, thanks so much for doing this. Congrats on the victory, and good luck on Friday.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it, man.
We appreciate JT taking the time. I know he is certainly looking forward to this. And the fact that they got a home game, he was so thrilled about that. They get a postseason win for the second straight year. He has really done some terrific things at this program. Not that it was a struggling program by any stretch of the imagination. They've always been solid, but he has gotten them back to maybe where they were a decade and a half ago, or at least getting close to it, winning back-to-back postseason games.
And I think it's really interesting too. He's a good guy, and I know that Tommy Paulone has a lot of respect for him. They actually have a good relationship. I've talked with Coach Paulone, and JT has said the same thing. Like both guys are kind of in the same boat. Coaching
I think we saw them at the coaches show sitting at the same table.
Yeah, we did. That's right. I don't think we would have seen that back in the day with like Muzzy Colosimo and Ray Ritz. I just don't think that would have happened. But they're both coaching small schools, trying to get more kids out to play, and so they're kind of going up against maybe some of the same challenges. And it's still so interesting, Sean, when you talk about these two teams, and to think like what Samir Crosby would look like if he was with Kimani Brown, like they were in midget football. I know he's a Greensburg Central Catholic Centurion now, man. I mean, previous basketball player, played when he was younger anyway, and now football player, but it's that definitely adds a wrinkle to this again, having a Jeanette kid playing against Jeanette for another team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've heard one side of the story. Let's get the other. Here now, my interview with Thomas Paulone of the Jayhawks. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. I'm sure you're very glad to be talking to me, because it means that your Jayhawks are still alive in the postseason, heading into a rematch against Greensburg Central Catholic in the Class 1A quarterfinals. To get here, you needed to knock off a heavily favored Neshannock team 23-7. You bounced the 4th-seeded Lancers. It was a really terrific performance on the road. What stood out most about your team's effort?
Just that team effort, all three phases, scored on all three phases, that the players were great. The players won the game. Ultimately, we felt like we needed to equalize them in the hit category, in the effort category, in the execution category. And we were 3 for 3 in regards to that, equalizing the game and beating a good Neshannock team. And, give credit to our staff. They did a phenomenal job on all three phases, preparing our team.
Every now and then we'll see an upset where, maybe a 3 or 4 seed gets knocked off in the opening round, but it doesn't happen all that often. And I always wonder, the underdog team, the mindset, I think, is so crucial, because sometimes they could lose the game before it even starts if they don't truly believe that they can beat a heavily favored team. So what did you see from your team's mentality and their mindset leading into this one?
It was everything, like you said. We believed in our meetings all week, and we talked about it. And, we told the kids, we're not just here to pump you up. Like, we believe we're going to be here next week on Monday. And it felt like that all week. Halftime, we went in, and they were fired up. They're ready to get back. They couldn't wait to get back out there because they knew they were going to win the game. And like you said, it was a totally mentality of a belief and that we're going to win the game.
Now, unfortunately, there was an injury that kind of changed the outlook. Neshannock's quarterback went out during the play. So I would assume for you that probably changed what you were trying to do a little bit, because it's a new wrinkle that you probably didn't prepare for. But how did your team respond to that and make the necessary adjustments?
Sure. Part of the game, we made a big hit on that quarterback, and he went out. And like you said, the backup was a freshman. They still had a good running game, so we still had to contain their quarterback and running back. They had a good run game. But I felt like, even with their starter being in, it was just the way we practiced all week, and our mentality in that game is we were going to refuse to lose. Yeah, it might have been a little closer, but, we will never speculate to know. But, it's part of the game, and, glad that we won the category of out hitting them, and ultimately getting their quarterback out of the game was huge.
Well, your defense was incredible, obviously. You held them to 7 points. You get the safety. But offensively, you did more than enough to win this one. What did you like on that side of the football from your team?
Yeah, offensively and defensively, great game plan, great call in the game by Darius Brown and Anthony Kopis on the defensive side of the balls. They love our kids, and they had a great plan, and the kids executed. I mean, Nick Mendoza on defense, holy cow. He had his best game, an inside backer that he's ever had. Our D-line really stepped up to the challenge. They had some big kids up front, 6'4", 283, Clarion offer kid. Our kids really rose to the challenge on a defensive line. Offensively, same thing. Just the way we ran and blocked and really played like a team, all 11 on the field, and really came out with a good performance.
When you took this program over, it was quite a distance from where the expectations were just a few years prior, because everyone expects Jeanette to get to the postseason, win postseason games. But it's been a long road back. Now that you've gotten this win, what does this mean for the program, and maybe going forward, what could it indicate about where the Jayhawks are headed?
Sure. I appreciate you asking that. It's obviously a huge win for our program and our confidence. We're playing with only 2 seniors, and it's been quite the learning curve with this new group. I think we replaced 8 starters on both sides of the ball this year. So with a new system on defense and, some wrinkles on offense, we had to reteach, and new special teams coordinator, Dustin Shove. So, it's been quite the grind with the staff to get it to where it is. And like you said, we took over not even 3 years ago. December will be 3 years that our staff has been together. And, we're Gen alumni. We thought day one this expectation was our expectation. And now that the kids are believing it, they really are embracing it and really getting back to Jayhawk football. And like you said, the sky's the limit where this team's going to go this year and beyond.
So you play a familiar opponent, Graceburg Central Catholic. I know you understand the significance of any time Jayhawks and Centurions do battle, but especially now in the postseason, in the quarterfinals, even more on the line. What do you remember about the first meeting, and what do you need to kind of do differently this time to write a different outcome?
Sure. Just playing fundamental football. They outplayed us in terms of that category the first time around. We had some bad mistakes. We gave up a safety. We gave up a kick return. Those stuff can't happen. We lost the turnover margin, right? So all of that's free points that we gave a good Greensboro Central Catholic team at home. So, that's been an emphasis this week, is just getting back to fundamentals and getting back to the basics and working on ourselves. And obviously we have a scheme where we feel comfortable with on both sides of the ball for a very talented Greensboro Central Catholic team. So, we dove into, what we're doing best right now and what we didn't do good against them the first time. And we're going to go out there Friday and compete.
I know you're not going to tip your hand too much, but when you're on the side that comes up short in the first meeting, when you go against that same team a second time, do you feel as though you're inclined to make pretty significant changes, or do you kind of say, let's just execute better with a very similar game plan to the first time around?
Yeah, it's been tough installing the wing tee. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, we took a look at ourselves and who they are now against a talented Menneson team last week, and there are changes to personnel on our side, and we feel comfortable where we're at in terms of the game plan, and with 2 practice days to go.
This is going to be a great matchup. We love it here on the Westmoreland Sports Network, obviously, because it guarantees one of our teams will be moving on to the semifinals. But the history between these schools and the fact that it's at nearby Norwin, where both fan bases can certainly make the trek. What do you anticipate from the environment and kind of the outside noise that comes with this?
Sure. I think, like you said, it's just a classic Jeanette Greensboro Central Catholic. I mean, the crowd at Greensboro Central Catholic, when we played them the first time, it was just an electric night. It was a great night. I think it was their youth night. A lot of people were there on both sides, and it's going to be a great atmosphere at Norwin. There's some playmakers on both sides of the ball people are curious about, right? So I think, we're one of 4 Westmoreland teams left, if I'm not mistaken. So, there's going to be some players there from different schools, I'm sure. And, we're going to be under the Friday Night Lights. We just got off the practice field, man. What a beautiful week we have, right? It's supposed to be beautiful Friday. So I think it's going to be chaos, up in the stands with, the crowds that are expected, and looking forward to our guys exposing in that environment.
A lot of your players are also hoopers for Jeanette. I'm sure that they know what happened when GCC and Jeanette did battle in the basketball playoffs. Does that matter at all? Is there any benefit to Jeanette already having bounced the Centurions on the hardwood in the postseason?
I'm sure there's some confidence, obviously a different game. And that Central team was talented, man. They did a good job. They had a good season last year, Central and Jeanette hoops. So, I'm sure a couple of key guys that play that, they know the significance of that. And, they've been in big games. So I think that helps them with that. I think there's obviously a correlation with all sports being multiple sports and being competitors and being exposed in that environment. So yeah, I think it matters and helps, with that. And, I know our big boys up front who don't play hoops are ready to go too. So it's just going to be a classic Central Jeanette game.
Final thing for you, fill in the blank. The Jayhawks will win if
we play fundamentally sound and Jeanette Jayhawk football.
Well, Thomas, we're looking forward to it. Should be a great matchup. Centurions and Jayhawks, round 2 in 2024. Thanks so much for taking the time, and good luck.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sean. Looking forward to seeing you.
And we appreciate Coach Paulone, as always, taking the time to join us here.
And Steelers Coach of the Week, Sean. We got to mention that too. How about it?
Well, hey, you're the number 13 seed. You go up to Neshannock, which I'm sure was not a fun trek, and you win that game, and not just edge it out, but you win pretty decisively by, if my math is correct, 16 points. You deserve it. So congrats to them. And it certainly looks like this is going to be the bracket where expect the unexpected. Now, I'm not saying Fort Cherry or Clairton are going to get upset anytime soon, but you just don't know in this bracket, because we've already seen a 10, 11, and 13 seed all move on to the quarterfinals. So pretty cool stuff. And the coolest aspect, I mentioned Fort Cherry, Flick. The likelihood is the Rangers move on. By the way, I don't know if you saw their star player just committed to Penn State, Matt Sigg.
Oh, I did see
one
that,
one of the most accomplished WPIAL players that we have seen in recent memory. He is incredible. One of these teams in Westmoreland County will likely be facing them. We are guaranteed a team in the semifinals, so that's pretty cool. I don't know that many years we're guaranteed that one of our teams will be moving on to the semis.
Yeah, it's really neat, And again, the lineage here of Westmoreland County teams getting to play for WPIAL championships, that's been really neat to see. Obviously, most recent Bell Vernon, then Penn Trafford, Jeanette, and those teams. But to have a team guaranteed in the semifinals, pretty neat too.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for our look at the brackets. By the way, we should mention a couple of college games in Westmoreland County this weekend. Seton Hill goes to Slippery Rock. The Rock ranked 10th or 13th. They're really good.
Pretty good.
They're in the top 15. They are 7-1, so that will be a tough one for the Griffins on the road. And then St. Vincent is playing its last game of the season already. I was surprised to hear that. They looking for their second win. They're going against winless Bethany. That will be in Latrobe at 1 o'clock on Saturday. The Griffins game at the Rock will be 1 o'clock as well. Well, Flick, put a bow on this one. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
Yeah, just real quick, as I mentioned on the show last week with the broadcast for the playoffs, there's a lot of moving parts. And again, I could probably write a book, and I would probably have to write a book for everyone to understand how this is all working. I mean, there are people on our staff that don't understand, why this game can be streamed, to our platform, our network, and why some have to be streamed to NFHS. And I just want everybody to know that it is our goal at the end of the day to be able to stream every single possible game that we can on video to our own platform. But because the WPIAL has a contract with NFHS, there are certain games that just can't happen. So we're able to do audio only for those games. So again, that's probably the easiest way of explaining it. There are way more layers to it than that. But I just want everybody to know that our ultimate goal going into every Friday, we want to be able to video stream. We would love to be able to video stream the Penn Trafford Peters Township game, but because of things going on and because of contract rights and that kind of thing, we can't do it. So we have to stream audio only, and people can listen for free. Jeanette, Greensburg Central Catholic, we are able to do it. So I just kind of want to make sure everyone understands that our ultimate goal is to video stream everything to our own platform, not only to NFHS, but unfortunately, there's some things that go on that we can't do that. And if I would explain all those things, it would probably make the show 3 hours longer. So, so just know that you can watch the game on Friday between Jeanette GCC for free, and then the audio broadcast of Penn Trafford and, of course, Peters Township. But we're going to have coverage for you, man. Sean will have the preview cooking on late Thursday night, early Friday morning, and then
sometimes very, very late Thursday night.
Or say very, very early Friday morning. And then, of course, our scoreboard will have that up for you, the tweets and the coverage on Friday night, late night with our our wrap up and everything. So looking forward to it. 4 Westmoreland County teams battling, and we'll see what happens.
And by the way, obviously you can go back and watch the show again on archive, but we also always have those coaches interviews up on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and check those out. Also, Westmoreland alum Q&A, if you're a Franklin Regional football fan, you want to check that one out this week. So we got a lot of good stuff every single day on our website, and certainly Friday, all throughout the day, morning, afternoon, evening, late night. You definitely want to be constantly refreshing our website for scores, recaps, previews, everything that goes with the website, in addition to obviously those live broadcasts. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. Again, we don't know at this point if we will be back for another episode. It's going to depend on what happens this week. If things go according to plan and our teams do very well, we know that there's a possibility that 3 of them could move on. We know for sure one team will be moving on and one team will be going home in that GCC Jeanette matchup. We'll find out if the Warriors and Panthers can continue into the semifinals as well. Want to thank our great guests, Penn Trafford's coach John Ruane, Lance Getsy of Franklin Regional, John Thompson of Greensburg Central Catholic, and Thomas Paulone of Jeanette. For my colleague Dan Flickinger, Sean Meyers signing off. Thanks so much for tuning in once again to another special playoff edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Good night.